You know what's fun is because the way these movies are paired up, you guys get to experience the tonal whiplash that I did watching these back to back. Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I am an artist and a film enthusiast, and I am continuing my Halloween retrospective series, this time with H20 Halloween 20 H20 20 years later, Halloween 20 years 20 Halloween. And unfortunately, Halloween Resurrection. Let's dive right in and start with H20. That's what I'm calling it from here on out. My experience is kind of weird with this movie. I watched it right before the 2018 version came out, and I thought it was all right. I definitely didn't love it at the time, and I can't even say that I totally liked it, but I remember thinking it was a movie. It's okay. And then watching it this time, I can't exactly tell you what happened, but I have done a complete 180. I love this movie. I think it is great. Not at all perfect, and for sure not the best Halloween movie, but it is super fun. I've really grown to appreciate this, and I cannot explain why. Maybe we can piece it together, you and I, like a little mystery. The case of who murdered my hatred for this movie. My favorite kill in H20 is Sarah, I think is her name. I wrote it down as Sarah, and it might not be. But she's the one, her boyfriend gets killed in the dumbwaiter, and she goes through a whole series of events. There's a great chase scene with her, and then Michael stabs her, and I thought that was kind of it. I thought that was going to be like end of kill. And then later, John and whatever his girlfriend's name is walk into the room where she's, been killed, and they find her like hanging from a light bulb. I still don't understand how it works, but the visual is tremendous. It's disgusting and really gory, and I love the like light coming through her rib cage. Anyway, it is a great kill, and I like that it kind of continues with Michael's random obsession with putting bodies in places and setting up little booby traps. It's kind of fun. It's a little ridiculous, but it was always a little bit ridiculous. So for this movie to lean into that, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. It's a great kill, and it feels the most like a slasher movie kill in this movie. Now, in what was an unexpected twist for me, I have a ton of positives for this movie. First of all, that opening 10-20 minutes where you see the nurse and a couple of those kind of teenage guys around her get killed, just a great opening. I almost put Joseph Gordon-Levitt's skate through the face. That was very close to being my favorite kill. The only reason it wasn't is because we didn't end up seeing that happen. It was kind of the aftermath. Still a great kill. It's such a great opener. I like the Mr. Sandman at the beginning, kind of calling back to Halloween 2. But that whole opening sequence, it really sets the tone for the movie. It's a little bit funny and a little bit scary, which is exactly what this movie is and where it thrives. And it makes Michael really imposing. I really enjoy a great horror movie opening. When it's done right, it can make you kind of settle in and feel like, okay, I made the right decision watching this movie. Or if you're in a theater, you're like, didn't waste my money. Already got my money's worth. That's great. This is what I imagine that probably felt like when this came out. But even if it didn't, it does for me. Did not make a mistake watching this movie. I really enjoyed it. I also enjoy the score. It's a development from the original theme that feels good and not like garbage, which you can't say for all of them. The characters are a real strong point in this movie for me. I love the PTSD angle that they're going for Laurie. I appreciate that feels different from the 2018 one, and I know that they couldn't have known what 2018 was going to do, but I like that this is a completely unique and separate take. So I appreciate that this makes Laurie kind of a dick. She's not like a great mom, and she probably wouldn't be if she went through all that trauma and didn't process it at all. But I enjoy her dynamic with John a lot more in this. The first time I watched it, I do remember kind of feeling like, oh, he's just such a whiny little kid. But I don't know, something about that familial trauma, the generational trauma, it really worked for me this time around. I enjoyed that he felt like he was being smothered, and I enjoyed that she felt like she couldn't let go of him. Those two character interactions to me played really, really well, and I cannot explain to you why they didn't the first time or why they do now. Another huge positive is the setting of the movie. I like that it's at this kind of, well, not abandoned, but currently abandoned school. It has that kind of backrooms feeling where you're like, there are supposed to be people here, but there's just nobody. It's very upsetting. The way that it's shot is really interesting. I like the Halloween decorations just kind of put up that have been left for nobody to look at. Not to mention, it feels fresh because it's a much larger area for Michael to roam around. It feels fresh while also giving the energy of the first movie. It's not him in some bunker or tunnel, as we'll get to later. And it's not in the same house that we know every corner of. It's something new. It feels like you could run into something at any turn, and there's a lot of turns. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, it kind of has a little bit of the Overlook from The Shining energy. I'm not going to say it's as well developed as that at all, but the idea of this place that's supposed to have people that doesn't have people, and then there's just somebody kind of roaming around trying to kill people. I like that. I just put that together. I'm a smart guy. This movie does take its time getting to the killing, getting to the murders after that first scene, obviously. And I think that's a good thing. I like the pacing of this. It feels like we get to live with these characters. And by the time we get to all the murder, it's just about time to get into that, end of second act, beginning of third act, and we get to just ride it home into the end. It builds to this grand conclusion and then a second grand conclusion, which is another thing that I hugely appreciate about this movie. I think the first time I watched it, I was really angry, like, oh no, you're not supposed to kill Michael. That was stupid. You remember when I said I'm a smart guy? Not always true. I think this is probably my favorite ending to Michael. Laurie gets to really get back on her feet. She makes a call, which is something that the whole franchise has been kind of building toward her doing. She gets stronger and stronger and better under pressure. And then finally, end of this movie, she just hijacks an ambulance, takes him out into the woods, chops his head off. That is a great ending. It surprised me even though I knew it was coming. And the way that they build tension right after that happened with the police sirens coming closer and then just cut to black. End of movie. Halloween H20. So good. It's such a gutsy ending and I really appreciate that they just went for it. But that's not to say that this movie is perfect. It is definitely not. I have several negatives that I'd like to address. First of all, the mask in this movie, while not the worst one we've seen, is not good. I think I've narrowed it down to eyebrows. That's what I'm thinking it is. Also, the hair in this, it's just kind of ridiculous. About halfway through, it hit me that Michael in this movie looks a lot more like Glenn and or Glenda in Seed of Chucky than he does like Michael Myers, which is not good. Sort of not the energy that you probably want in a Michael Myers. I don't know if they were trying to go for a crazier hair, like, oh, he's lost it even more. Not sure what the thought process was. Does not work. There's also like a couple of moments where it's like a bad CGI mask. Inexplicable. Maybe that's covering up an even worse practical mask, but if it is, maybe you don't need that shot as bad as you think you do. But when we're pulled out a little more, when we're not directly up next to Michael, he looks fine and he's played very well. He's got an imposing presence. There's a couple of times kind of later on where he's swinging a knife around and you can tell, like, you know, in a bad action movie, when somebody comes up and they're trying to do a punch, but you can tell that they're not going to land that punch because they're not even trying to land the punch. Feels a little bit like that. Like he's just swinging the knife around and not really trying to hit anybody. I feel like the first movie had a good handle on making sure that Laurie was always running and just barely making it through by the skin of her teeth. This one feels like it almost had to up the ante on that, and I don't think that it did. A huge nitpick. It doesn't really matter. But it's, he's played well. I think he's a decent Michael. My biggest issue with this movie is probably in that back half. It can have a tendency to feel a little bit more like a 90s thriller action movie than a Halloween horror movie, which means at times we just completely forego character that we've built up this whole time and just kind of forget that they even mattered. I don't know. Like, I feel like they built up a whole thing with John and then they just went, anyway, get out of here. You just scoot your little boot right on out. That's such a weird resolution for his character arc in this movie. It's like they just forgot they were writing his character and wanted to have one final Michael v. Laurie round. But if the plan was to have her hijack the ambulance, that could be your final Michael v. Laurie round. Like that works. That's enough time for them to develop that. And we don't need to just kick him out of the movie. In fact, when the movie ended, I had to back it up and just make sure that I didn't miss Michael killing John and that he did show up at the end, because it was such a passing shot that it was like, if you didn't see it, which I didn't, I thought he was dead. But no, he's fine. He's good. But overall, my final thoughts on H20, 20 years later, Halloween, the two Halloween 2.0. This is a remarkable movie. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it brings a lot more than I thought it did. It feels like a Halloween film. It feels like a continuation of the characters and the franchise. And it feels like it was shot somewhere near Halloween, which doesn't seem like it should be that hard a bar to hit, but apparently it is. Like I said before, in a series with so many random branching timelines and stories that pick up from things from years ago, this is probably my favorite end to one of those stories. I think it solidifies that as one of my favorite timelines, if not my favorite timeline. And the way that it just ends with that Halloween music, classic Halloween, no zhuzh, no special kind of froofing it up, classic Halloween theme, John Carpenter music. I don't know, man, it really hit. I appreciate what this movie does. I think it's a really great conclusion. I'm calling it a conclusion because I don't acknowledge the next one as a continuation of this. So this is a great conclusion to what I guess we can call the H20 timeline. Hey, welcome back. Let's talk about this dog shit movie. Halloween Resurrection came out in 2002 and was directed by Rick Rosenthal, who also somehow directed Halloween 2. What happened between those movies? What happened? Rick, are you okay? Like, what went down in your life that you made one of the best Halloween sequels and then easily the worst Halloween movie ever? I had never seen this before because it had a kind of bad reputation, and now I see why, because it's bad. I deeply hate this movie. I cannot express to you how little I enjoy this movie. It is not good. There are a few redeeming things, but man, I had to like work on something else while I was watching this because it's so rough. Jumping right in, my favorite kill in Halloween Resurrection is, I guess it's the tunnel kill. None of them are good. All of them are bad. Everything is bad. Things I appreciate about this kill, because you have the live stream element, you get to see it from the victim's perspective. That's interesting. That's something. There's a thought that went into that. And I don't know, just like, it's kind of gross. I like that you don't know if it's regular Michael or the like fake Michael. That's something, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's all right. My second option was when he decapitates a lady with a kitchen knife, just because of the sheer brute strength that would take. I like that. And I like her head just like falling down the stairs. It's an interesting kill. Outside of that, it's not. It's nothing. Notable positives for Halloween Resurrection is going to be pretty short because I'm going to have a lot more other stuff to talk about. But I don't know. There's a couple of times where this movie gets bad enough that it becomes entertaining. I wish that it was that bad the whole time, because that would be something. That would be a watchable movie, even if not a good movie, at least something that I can appreciate and enjoy for its schlocky weirdness. But it's not that most of the time. I think unless Busta Rhymes is on screen, it's probably not that. I will say, he does do a kung fu to Michael. That's pretty good. Like that bit, that one little moment is pretty good. That might be my only positive of this movie. Sometimes it's really truly terrible, and that becomes slightly watchable. That does lead me into my negatives of this movie, and there are aplenty. We are not wanting for negatives on this movie. I hated this. At its core concept, I hate this movie. The idea of taking Michael Myers and making him some kind of MTV live stream thing, it's not good. It's nothing. There are so many different Halloween pitches that are kind of floating around from people who wanted him to fight, Pinhead from Hellraiser, or wanted him to get in on the Freddy versus Jason kind of action. And you hear all of those and you go, it's a good thing that didn't get made. This should have been one of those. It's also built fundamentally around trying to figure out why Michael Myers went crazy. A thing that they just sort of forget pretty quick in there. That's stupid. That's a dumb thing to do. If you've seen any of the Halloween movies that work, you know that the less that's really explicitly said about Michael's origin and what happened to him, why he went crazy, the better. This is no exception. Them trying to dig into, was it the house? Was it ghosts? Was it whatever? It's so dumb, and it's a thing that they don't ever address outside of the opening and getting all these people into this, what do they call it, dangertainment thing? It's just a horrible setup, and I don't get what they were thinking making this. A quarter of this movie takes place at a Halloween party where they're watching the live stream. To me, if you were going to make a movie with a big Halloween party and you wanted to get a group of teens to go into the Michael Myers house, it's not a lot of dots to connect there. Halloween party in Michael Myers' house. There you go. I don't know why we have to have this other element that never works. The only thing that I can assume is that maybe it was trying to do like a Blair Witch kind of thing, but it really doesn't do that. It just does not work. I'll get to an idea later, but that's just, I don't know. It feels so reactionary to other horror movies that have come out. But before the movie gets into any of that, it decides we gotta ruin some stuff that was good before. It retcons H20's ending to where now Michael crushed the throat of one of the emergency responder guys, put him in his whole costume, and then I guess Laurie killed him and Michael was just off doing his own thing. What a horrible idea. What a dumb retcon. I don't know who thought that was a good plan. And it also set up this movie to have to kind of deal with that by just killing Laurie. It was like the antithesis of the H20 opening, where H20's opening was like, hey, remember why you love Halloween movies? Get ready. This felt like it opened with the director looking right into the camera and saying, hey, we hate you. Get ready to watch our movie, you dumb idiot. You've already paid for it. I don't know how much more I can really say. On every technical level, this is dog shit. It is not filmed well. The dialogue is some of the worst I've ever heard. It's edited horribly. Sometimes it feels like a TV movie the way it's edited. It's not scary. It's not exciting. It doesn't develop the franchise. It does nothing well. There are so few movies in a franchise that I really love that I can just say you'd be better off not watching it. And unfortunately, this is definitely one of them. I guess that leads me to my final thoughts. This movie is bad, and they should feel bad for making it. I feel bad that it exists. And if you love this movie, I'm sad for you. Genuinely, I hope you're doing okay. The very best thing I can say about this movie is that there is a version of it somewhere out there that could be interesting. If they were to have taken this whole live stream element and just shoot the movie as a found footage horror movie, I don't think it would be good. I know that it wouldn't be good, but at least it would be creative. At least it would feel like something different to add to this franchise and not a different movie that they wanted to make with just the facade of a Halloween movie thrown on top of it. Normally I try to defend a movie that's this bad just by like, hey, it's hard to make a movie, it's tough out there, and it is. It's incredibly difficult to make a movie, and I respect anybody that can do it. I respect Rick Rosenthal. Not as much for this movie, but I respect that he made it. But even then, like, this is a studio sequel horror movie. This should not have gotten this far in the planning process to be made. It should have been a script that everybody went, hey man, that's an idea. We're probably not going to do that though, because you know that that's dumb, right? But no, it's a movie that they made. It's a movie that got shot, edited, and at no point in that production did anybody go, do you think we should make a good Halloween movie instead of this one? I don't understand how it happened, and I can't support it. It is one of the worst movies I think I've seen in a really, really long time. Thank you for watching this video and checking out my channel. I've got 2 more videos coming in the Halloween retrospective series, the Rob Zombie double feature, so get hyped for that one, and then the Blumhouse David Gordon Green trilogy, so that should be very interesting. That'll come out on Halloween Day. The Rob Zombie should come out next week. And that's, yeah, I think then it'll be Halloween. We will have done it. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on anything that isn't Halloween, or that is, because I'll probably talk about these more at some point, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment down below what you want me to review next, or do none of those things because I am not your dad.